JBN, we keep you informed. 2 injured in suspected reprisal shooting in Denham Town. Gunmen struck on Albert Street in Denham Town, West Kingston on Sunday night, leaving 2 men nursing gunshot wounds in what investigators believe to be a reprisal for the murder of a man and the shooting of a 1-year-old girl on West Street early Sunday morning. According to reports, a group of persons were standing on Albert Street when men traveling in a motor car opened fire on them. When the gunfire ended, it was found that a 26-year-old shopkeeper and a 24-year-old market vendor had been shot. The men, whose names are being withheld, were admitted to hospital, but there has been no report yet on the extent of their injuries. Yesterday morning, members of the security forces stepped up their presence in the area, with police and the soldiers conducting foot and mobile patrols. The area has been tense for some time, with gangsters reportedly sending threats to residents of West Street. About 7:30 on Sunday morning, the men carried out their threat when they fatally shot 43-year-old Andon Robinson. 1-year-old Maya Daly was shot in the abdomen during the attack on Robinson. Daly underwent emergency surgery on Sunday, and family members say the doctors are optimistic about her chances. Thieves robbed Western Union Santa Cruz branch again. For the second time in 5 months, thieves once again made off with cash from the Western Union branch in Santa Cruz, St. Elizabeth. According to the police, 5 men carrying handguns entered the Santa Cruz location, robbed the tellers of an undetermined sum of cash, and relieved the security guard of his gun. The incident happened at 9:30 a.m. Monday morning. As the robbers left the store, customers reportedly ran from the building and raised an alarm. As a result of the robbery, the branch was closed for the day. Woolmer's boys in hot water for insulting girls' school principal. The administration of the Woolmer's Boys School in Kingston has moved to take drastic action against several second-form students who videotaped themselves hurling disrespectful sexual insults to the headmistress of the Woolmer's Girls' School last Friday. On Monday, all second-form students were summoned to a hastily arranged hearing inside the school's Douglas Lorraine Auditorium after footage of the students went viral on social media platforms over the weekend. A source close to the school said that the institution is currently investigating the incident and harsh measures will be taken against those found to have violated. The parents of some of the schoolboys involved have been summoned by the administration, and the word is that expulsion may be the final outcome. In the video, the students were heard shouting sexual insults and describing the private parts of the neighboring Woolmer's Girls' School principal in a most uncouth manner. The boys were reportedly incensed that they were denied entry to the junior section of the girls' school by the senior educator, which is in keeping with a decades-old tradition that Woolmer's Boys students must have a legitimate reason to be allowed on the all-girl campus. The Woolmer's group of schools and its alumni have prided itself on maintaining a reputation of being one of the most sought-after secondary and primary level education institutions in the Caribbean, and the latest incident has thrown a negative spotlight on the all-boys school. The video has drawn stern gushes of condemnation from old boys who have demanded that serious action be taken against the offending youngsters who reportedly recorded the video and posted it on social media. The incident is the latest in a string of reports and allegations against Woolmer's Boys students that include threats of physical and sexual violence against female teachers and rank indiscipline being perpetrated by some rogue students, some of whom represent the school in various sporting disciplines. It also once again raises the issue of pervasive indiscipline across schools nationwide, with a growing number of reports of students attacking teachers. Businessman killed in churchyard was seeking refuge, says pastor, after a brazen attempt on his life 4 months ago, when close to 20 bullets were fired into his motor vehicle by gunmen, injuring him. 50-year-old businessman Wayne Stanbury, who was killed at church last week Sunday, had been inching closer and closer to God. Stanbury was murdered about 8:25 a.m. by an unknown assailant upon his arrival at the Emmanuel Apostolic Church on Slipe Road in Kingston, where he had turned months ago for refuge following the death of his wife from cancer and the October attempt on his life while on his way home in Lindsay, St. Catherine. After the October attack, the businessman, who was boss of Berry Dunn Financial Services, based at King Street in Linstead, relocated to Kingston and began worshipping at Emmanuel Apostolic. Following the morning service on Sunday, members of that church, including Senior Bishop Everton Thomas, engaged in a special floral tribute at the spot where Stanbury was murdered. According to Thomas, who described Stanbury as a champion, gentleman, and warrior, grief counseling units at the church, along with the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF Area 4 Chaplaincy Unit, have been working overtime since the incident. Thomas shared that Stanbury's move from Lindsay to Kingston was perceived to be a precautionary measure. Brother Wayne had been visiting us for several months. He never got saved at this church because he was saved in his teenage years. He never expressed fear for his life, but he did testify to the church and showed us his hand that was in a bandage. He had received counseling and had immersed himself into a Sunday school small group that was helping him to find solace. Bemoaning that 3 children were made orphans following Stanbury's killing and the prior death of his wife, Thompson pointed to the society's lack of respect for God and places of worship, saying, "Values and attitudes have gone down, down, down." At first, some of the members thought there was a robbery in progress. Some thought the gunshots came from behind the church, he said. Clear and imminent threats, Venezuela unrest, dark web spell trouble for Jamaica, says security expert. Less than a month after fishermen in St. Catherine confessed to smuggling hundreds of illegal guns into Jamaica from Haiti, security expert Professor Anthony Clayton is urging the government to invest more in Jamaica's long-term border protection. Speaking at an ASIS International Chapter meeting last Thursday, Clayton's counsel followed another call for pushback against political corruption and inappropriate use of resources within the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF in particular. He urged urgent action, pointing out that the unrest in neighboring Venezuela has positioned that country as another source of illegal guns and refugees infiltrating Jamaica. So far, the majority of Jamaica's illegal guns come directly from the United States and Haiti. There are fixed-winged drones that can stay out for 8 hours and get a very wide view. And if you have transponders or transmitters on all the boats by law, then you can actually know where a boat is, isn't it? And if there's been a rendezvous at sea, you are then ready for that boat when it comes in. These are some of the things we can do by making better use of technology, Clayton noted, debunking arguments of the inability to fund such initiatives. The cost of implementing such initiatives at official and unofficial ports of entry is far less than the damage that illegal guns in the hands of troubled youths will bring, he warned. Meanwhile, the proliferation of social media and the dark web, against the background of the infiltration of gangster jihad in countries like neighboring Trinidad and Tobago, should also concern Jamaica, the professor stressed. Clayton, who is Professor of Caribbean Sustainable Development at the Institute of Sustainable Development at the University of the West Indies, UWI, said that political corruption remains a stumbling block for crime fighting locally. To curb this, he said sleuths should dig deeper into proceeds of crimes, especially money passed between gangsters, politicians, and their lawyers. Calling for stricter laws to stem the problem, he added, "One of the reasons we don't do this is because we have some very powerful people involved in various forms of trafficking and money laundering. And so this actually means going to the higher level of society," while commending Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson, who is to use a chunk of the $93.9 billion to be allocated to the Ministry of National Security for fiscal year 2020-21 for crime fighting. Clayton said that policemen and women on the ground were working tirelessly, but there needs to be more efficiency from their managers. "I have done several reviews of the police and have been really quite perturbed about some of the things I've found," he said. "You don't need to invest into a sworn officer for him to raise the barrier at the commissioner's office, for instance. He believes that some duties, including the operation of police vehicles, should be outsourced to private management and security companies. But you in private security must understand that you cannot lower standards in order to get the winning bid and increase profit margins. There's a level of standard that the public is entitled to." Some 50 members from private and government security agencies attended last week's meeting. Samuda says social media exaggerating level of violence in schools. Carl Samuda, Minister with responsibility for education, is blaming social media for what he says is an exaggeration of the level of violence in schools. In recent weeks, there have been several videos and reports of violent incidents perpetrated by students against each other and the school staff, including teachers. The incidents have led to calls for the Education Ministry to take decisive action to fix the problem. However, Mr. Samuda is unconvinced the situation is as bad as it seems. Social media has made the problem look as if it is overwhelming us. The fact is, it's not. I just left Denby High today where I spoke at Jamaica Day. They don't have any occurrences of this kind. The students are well behaved. A wonderful and refreshing and healthy environment is what I engaged in today, said Mr. Samuda. It is not widespread, he lamented. Mr. Samuda said the Education Ministry's response cannot be driven by extreme incidents, as it is unfair to teachers and students who are fully engaged with each other and are very productive in assisting the educational process in a very meaningful way. The minister said there is no short-term solution to violence in schools. He said the Ministry of Education is limited in relation to resources to put in fences and other security infrastructure. However, he noted that these would still not solve the problem. You could put all the fences around that you want. You could lock up every classroom. If you don't change the attitude of some children and the attitude of some teachers, and if you don't introduce into the mix a sense of balance, appreciation for rules, regulation, and authority, if you don't engage the teachers to let them understand that there is need at times to exercise great patience and understanding, all these things are complex issues that must be sorted out at the level of highly trained professionals, he suggested. Mr. Samuda maintained that drastic action, such as greatly increasing the presence of police officers on school compounds or expelling and suspending students, is not needed, as these reactions only create greater problems down the road. Instead, he said what is needed is balance. Mr. Samuda said a tripartite committee involving parents, teachers, and students is to be set up to look into the issue. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.